For anyone who isn't familiar with the Manistee National Forest, it's this very kind of primeval place. It just feels like it has secrets that it's holding, right? We were out back. We had a fire going in the fire ring, and we had our 2 dogs with us. And it was getting kind of late, and the fire was dying down, and we were just sitting there hanging out, and there was a pack of coyotes kind of yipping in the distance, right? And out of nowhere, there was this, and the only way I can describe it is it was something halfway between a howl and a yell. And it was, just kind of, it started low and it rose in pitch and volume. And it was so loud and it was so long. It was unlike anything I'd ever heard. And everything went silent. A second later, another sound started up, the same type of howl yell from the other side of us. All right. Same thing, different creature, but it was the same type of sound. A second after that, one of the coyotes let out a screech of acute distress, like a death screech, right? Just like, you know it when you hear it. And then after that, there were these kind of low guttural sounds that we heard.
Dr. Mounts experienced some unexpected audio issues during the recording of this episode. While the content remains intact, you may notice occasional dips in sound quality on his end. Thanks for your understanding and for sticking with us for this great conversation.
I am here to discuss the so-called flying saucers.
We know now that in the early years of the 20th century, this world was being watched closely by intelligences greater than man's.
Did the CIA write Wind of Change by the Scorpions?
As humans busied themselves about the various concerns, they were scrutinized and studied.
Dr. Loeb, what percentage chance do you give it that you have indeed uncovered extraterrestrial or non-human technology?
With infinite complacence, people went about their affairs, yet across an immense ethereal gulf, intellects vast and unsympathetic threw their plans against us.
All of a sudden, a stick out of nowhere landed right in front of us, and there was no tree, nothing overhead. Something threw it at us.
Yeah. What's your hot take on Travis Taylor?
I've got an exclusive for you guys if you want it about the Alaska.
We do.
Okay.
Dr. Taylor was revealed to be the chief scientist of the UAP task force with the Pentagon.
All Things Unexplained.
So some of that, I think, sir, we'll save for closed session.
All right, Unexplained ones, welcome back to All Things Unexplained. This is Dr. Mounts, and I am joined by Smitty. Smitty.
What's up?
A true welcome back to Smitty, our Mr. Technology. Well, it is good to be back. We're going back to our roots tonight, back to a little bit of Bigfoot. So we're live tonight and getting back into the Bigfoot topic with a very special guest who I'll introduce after a short commercial from CJ. But one of the things you can do if you'd like to support the show, hit that subscribe button wherever you're checking us out. We're live tonight on YouTube, on X, and even on LinkedIn. Also, say hello in the chat. I know already we've got people listening in from all around the world, including from Australia. Hello to Marie, friend of the show from Australia. Marie, welcome to the show. Yeah.
Does it sound okay?
Your accent or the
sound?
Yeah, I don't know why, but you got a little bit of weird background noise all of a sudden. But I think it'll be okay. We'll just make sure you're muted when you're not talking. Marie, thanks for joining us tonight. Everybody else, say hello in the chat. Let us know that you're here. And Marie is all the way from Australia. Hopefully our UFO buddies from Australia will join us tonight as well. Smitty, we're up to, I think, almost 43,000 subscribers now.
Wow. That was, we went from 39,000 to that many pretty fast. So
Yeah.
Really getting out there for everybody.
And our first Bigfoot episode, first Bigfoot podcast we ever did, we had two subscribers.
That's right. Two. And that was in 2020.
And that was CJ's parents, and they really pretended to be.
Yeah, we thought we were stepping high with 2 subscribers.
We got some good questions that night. We'll have to ask our special guest when we bring him on. About Bigfoot, what he thinks about that. Like, remember, we got asked, did COVID affect Bigfoots? That was, of course, during 2020. Very interesting question. So, who knows if COVID affected the Bigfoot population? Maybe we'll find out tonight because it is Bigfoot night. And we have a very special guest. But first, time for a little commercial break from CJ, and I just gotta find it and pull it up, and here it is. Here's CJ.
All Things Unexplained is free to watch on YouTube and listen to wherever you get your podcasts. If you would like to support our show, you can visit our YouTube store. Additionally, you can find us on Venmo under All Things Unexplained. Be sure to check out our website, allthingsunexplained.com. All proceeds from the sales of Dr. Mounce's books on Amazon and Audible also go straight to our show.
So we're really excited tonight. Smitty, I'm going to click the mute on you. We're really excited tonight. We're joined by Giano Cromley, who was born and raised in Montana. He is the author of 2 young adult novels and a collection of short stories. Giano is a recipient of an Artist Fellowship from the Illinois Arts Council and was a Bookends Fellow with Stony Brook University. He is an amateur woodworker, a certified wildlife tracer, and an English professor at Kennedy King College, where he is chair of the communications department. He lives on the south side of Chicago with his wife and 2 dogs. We're here tonight because of Giano's debut novel called American Mythology. I'm actually going to pull it up on the screen there. Giano's debut novel has been described by others as if you took a found footage horror film, mixed it with a healthy dose of whimsy, and added a ragtag group of misfits on the hunt for Bigfoot. But I would say, imagine if the Goonies grew up, got sad, joined a cryptid club, and went looking for emotional closure in the Montana wilderness. Or maybe that it's like Stand By Me wandered into a Bigfoot convention, got lost in the woods, and came out clutching a green leather journal full of secrets. These are what you get in American Mythology by Giano Cromley. This big-hearted book follows an unlikely crew on their search for Bigfoot in the Montana mountains and the strange occurrences that plague their expedition. A spooky adventure story and a wry tale of chosen family. American Mythology is a heartwarming debut about the power of belief and our relationship with nature. Let's welcome Giano Cromley to All Things Unexplained. Giano, welcome to the show.
Be here. Thank you for having me. This is great.
Oh, absolutely. And Giano, we just kind of want to dive right in now.
Can before you do, can I just say your descriptions of the novel? I'm actually jealous that I had not thought of those. What was the Stand By Me? That was great. And someone else who had been writing about it called it Goonies for Grown-Ups. So you are completely on point with this. I'm jealous of how well you gathered that.
Well, thanks. I appreciate it. I mean, it didn't take long. This is a really great book, American Mythology, that you have crafted, Giano. And I wanted to ask you right off the bat, what inspired American Mythology?
Well, I think the most obvious answer is that I have always been fascinated with Bigfoot, right? Since as early as I can remember. Actually, since very specifically, I watched the In Search of episode with Leonard Nimoy on Bigfoot, right? And I think everyone has there are kind of these historical marker points that will kind of catalyze a new generation of Bigfoot people, right? Like, so for people our age, and maybe you guys are the same, it was In Search Of. I think for a later group, it might have been Harry and the Hendersons. And then maybe later on, it could have been, Finding Bigfoot, right? But for me, it was that, hearing Dr. Spock talk about the possibility of Bigfoot being in the Pacific Northwest, seeing the clips of the Patterson-Gimlin film, and it just it ignited something in me. Like at that point, I just, and honestly, I didn't know at that early age that I wanted to be a writer, but ever since I knew that I wanted to be a writer, I knew that I wanted to write a book about Bigfoot. So, I mean, it was really from very early on.
Oh yeah. And I don't know about you, but we were also inspired by Coast to Coast AM.
Sure. Okay. So my parents used to play that on their alarm clock radio at night. And I remember coming in because my bedroom was across the hallway from them. And I would hear, and so that was back when it was not before George Noory. Art Bell. Yeah, it was Art Bell. So it was Art Bell, and just hearing him talk about, reports about the chupacabra, or just all the high strangeness, all of that. So I do remember listening to that just from an early age as well.
Oh yeah, and who can forget Unexplained Mysteries too? At some point.
Oh yeah. So that's kind of another marker too, right? I think so. Like people who maybe are like 5 or 10 years older than me might have gotten hooked by Unexplained Mysteries because they would always have that one like weird, like cryptid or paranormal episode that they would sneak in there.
Or the X-Files. I mean,
again, yeah, absolutely. The X-Files, right? Absolutely.
And if you say I'm Chubbs from the Goonies, I'm going to be upset now. So don't even start with me about that.
One, I was going to let the listeners figure that out for their own selves. And two, nobody, I'm hoping, gives you a Herbert on air or whatever he used to do.
Yeah, exactly. We'll avoid that if possible.
When he pulled his shirt up. So let's not go there. But yeah, I did comment with Giano before we got started tonight. One of the reasons that American Mythology hit so many notes and resonated so much with me is because, in many ways, it's the tale of middle-aged men on some level.
Yeah.
And at some point, we do have 3 middle-aged men that kind of set out, to find themselves in the woods. And that, that's kind of the theme of this show. And look, here we are tonight, 3 middle-aged dudes talking about Bigfoot.
Yeah. No, and it's really, I'm glad that you kind of picked up on that, right? So when I really started writing the first draft of this, which was early 2019, I had kind of 2 ideas. One was that I wanted to write about Bigfoot, which I'd been trying to do for years. I would start a story or start a novel, and I just couldn't find my way into it. And then I settled on the 2 protagonists, Jute and Virgil, right? These 2 old friends from childhood that live in a dying mining town in Montana. And I realized that was the key that unlocked the story for me, because I realized that I didn't want to write just about Bigfoot. I also wanted to write about friendship, right? And you see it. I think you see it in people who are kind of, maybe in you guys, but that having that thing in common that you kind of brings you together. You can talk about, you can, BS or whatever. Like it's a kind of a real, like a glue that can, form friendships, and so that was what I really wanted to also kind of dial into with this story.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I did want to know, did the story, or was it always about Bigfoot, or was that sort of a main theme that emerged later for you?
Yeah, so I wrote little pieces of this all out of order. So there is, and I don't want to give any spoilers away for the folks who haven't read it, but there's a scene early on that you'll probably remember where this kind of eminent expert in the field of Bigfoot's research, Dr. Marcus Bernard, goes to this Bigfoot convention and gives a rather surprising speech, right, where he kind of renounces his beliefs. And that was actually one of the first things I ever wrote with this book. I had no idea what anything else was going to be. I mean, I wrote that maybe 15 years ago, and just kind of sat on it. And so then, and then it was after I kind of started to figure out the story, I was like, oh, okay, I can now fold this guy into the narrative, into the story, and give this expedition that they're about to go on some extra kind of sauce, right? Some special sauce.
Right. And, that doesn't surprise me. We'll probably revisit that topic later.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't surprise me that you knew this about Dr. Bernard for quite a while, because that was a critical juncture of the book. And I would love to dive back into that with you later. And Smitty may bring that up, I think, as well. But, Giano, I also wanted to ask you, it's my understanding that you also have a personal Bigfoot encounter.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you want, should I tell you about it?
Oh, heck yeah.
Okay. Right. I mean, if not here, where, right? Like, okay.
Definitely.
So my encounter, and it took place in 2014. My wife and I had an Airbnb in Western Michigan. And it was called, in the listing, Cabin in the Woods, right? And it bordered onto what's known as the Manistee National Forest, right? And I'm not as familiar with the forests of Michigan as I am with Montana, but so it was one of my first times probably being in that area. But we had done some hiking, and it has just this really, for anyone who isn't familiar with the Manistee National Forest, it's this very kind of primeval place. It feels dark. It feels old. It just feels like it has secrets that it's holding, right? And I can't, I know that's not scientific, but it feels that way. And we had been, spent a week there, and it was our last night staying at this cabin. And we were out back. We had a fire going in the fire ring, and we had our two dogs with us. And it was getting kind of late, and the fire was dying down. And we were just sitting there, hanging out, and there was a pack of coyotes kind of yipping in the distance, right? Very normal for that type of area. And out of nowhere, there was this. And the only way I can describe it is it was something halfway between a howl and a yell. And it was, just kind of, it started low and it rose in pitch and volume. And it was so loud and it was so long. And I want to say it lasted about 10 seconds. And it was unlike anything I'd ever heard. And I've spent a fair amount of my time in the backcountry, right? Like, I know a lot of the sounds that you would probably hear from the types of animals that could be pretty much anywhere, but certainly in Michigan. And everything went silent. A second later, another sound started up, the same type of howl yell from the other side of us. All right. Same thing, different creature, but it was the same type of sound. Again, lasted a good 10, 12 seconds, died out. A second after that, one of the coyotes let out a screech of acute distress, like a death screech, right? Just you know it when you hear it. And then after that, there were these kind of low guttural sounds that we heard. And all of that, you could say, okay, well, maybe there were Bigfoot people, like Bigfoot hunters, hanging out around you. It's certainly possible, although the level of the sound that they made did not seem at all like anything a human could make. The other factor in this, though, is one of our dogs was Great Pyrenees, rescue from downstate Illinois. Great Pyrenees are sheep guarding dogs, right? So their whole thing is they're completely docile, totally chill, unless they sense danger, right? And so like the whole point is they're out in the mountain pastures with sheep all summer long. Basically, they're chill because you don't want to disturb the sheep unless there's some kind of threat. He went ballistic at that sound, like unlike anything I'd ever seen him do. I mean, fortunately, I had a leash on him so I could, hold him back, because otherwise, I mean, he was lunging and snapping at the tree line. And so, I mean, that to me just says that he clearly sensed some kind of danger that I'd never seen him sense before. After that, it was let's go inside time, because it was too much. It was really frightening. The only thing I'll add is that when people have kind of followed up and said, well, what was the sound like? Have you heard something comparable to it? The only thing that I can remotely compare it to is the Ohio howl, right? So,
right.
I assume you're both familiar with that sound, right?
Yes.
That is really what it sounded like. I mean, it just no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's terrifying.
Yeah.
And all the things you described, do point towards, at the very least, something different.
Yeah. So I mean, the other, and you may have a question already forming on your mind, so I'll answer it before you ask it. So, I mean, this happened in 2014. I had posted something about it on Tumblr. Do you remember Tumblr? That blog? Yeah. And I got actually quite a few people read it and made comments. And I did later, I looked back at some of the comments and I got a lot of people saying, do you know that the Manistee National Forest is actually really kind of famous for dogman sightings?
Oh.
Yeah. So and at that point, I'd never even heard of dogman before. So that was kind of new to me. Now I feel like it's much more kind of a mainstream cryptid. So, I can say that to you guys and you're like, oh yeah, okay, that must be. But Michigan is kind of like dogman central, essentially,
Yeah, so you definitely might have had a dogman encounter.
Yeah, I mean, I still think, in my own mind, I feel like it was a Bigfoot, but certainly that, I could be open to that as well.
Well, and I mean, we think that there could definitely be some crossover, right, in the cryptid world. And one person's dogman, maybe another person's Sasquatch, right?
100%. 100%. I think that's absolutely in the realm of possibility, for sure.
You've probably never heard of this, but around here we have a myth going that there's something called Possum Head Man.
No, but that's already my new favorite cryptid, and I'm writing it.
I don't know if you'll find, Mounts and I, first time we met, we were talking about this. It's been like 25 years ago or so, and he'd heard about it in one location. I'd heard about it in another, in this area. So,
wow. Okay. I'm just like getting ready to Google as soon as we get off. Yeah.
Needless to say, the head of a possum and the body of a man, possum head man. So,
sure. I mean, that tracks. Yeah.
Another terrifying cryptid.
Sure.
Well, Giano, this clearly was a very deeply personal experience. Did it shape the narrative for American mythology in any way?
I think it did in a couple ways. There is a scene where the characters have they experience that sound that we experienced. So that clearly was in my thoughts as I wrote out that scene. But I think in general, just having that experience, I mean, I was already always fascinated by Bigfoot, right? That was already, happening. But I think just having that experience kind of made it, it's, sometimes something you feel like the universe gives you a sign and, it means, okay, you should keep doing this thing you want to do. So in some ways, maybe it was just, I interpreted that as a sign that I was I should keep trying to do what I was going to do. And it still took another 5 years before I figured it out, but I kept at it.
Oh yeah. And before I switch over to Smitty for a little bit of conversation about the themes and characters in American mythology, I want to point out we're joined tonight by Giano Cromley, author of American Mythology, that is available now on Amazon. Is there somewhere else that you would like to direct people, Giano, to pick up a copy of American Mythology?
I mean, it's always good to, if you got a local bookstore that's in your neighborhood or in your town, like it's always great to support local businesses. So go get it there. They should already have it in stock, or if not, they'll get it for you. But obviously, if, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, all those places ship. So, I say wherever you can get it if you want.
That's a great point. Before we head over, Smitty, we do have a comment here for you. Giano, this is from Federico Vidal on LinkedIn. And Federico says, to Giano, greetings from iMix. We deeply appreciate the work you're doing in exploring mythology, culture, and the boundaries of the unknown. Subjects like Bigfoot are not just legends. They open essential questions about reality, consciousness, and the limits of human understanding. We would be honored to connect at some point and explore possible collaborations where science, culture, and mystery converge with respect and enthusiasm. The iMix group. I have no idea who the iMix group is, but there it is for you.
I mean, they're talking my language, like reality, consciousness, the limits of human understanding. I'm all about all of that. So consider that a yes.
And they're on LinkedIn, and it's my understanding you can trust everything on LinkedIn. So you should be good to go. Smitty, you wanted to dive into some of the themes here of American mythology?
Yeah, just getting into a couple of the characters, Jute and Virgil. They're flawed but lovable characters.
Yeah.
Who came first in your mind? Was it Jute or the friendship?
Yeah. So probably the next character that came to my mind was Jute, right? So Jute is kind of a big guy, really lovable, but kind of emotionally a little bit troubled. And the reason why he came into my mind probably next was that one of the early scenes I also wrote was that camping chapter early on with his father, right?
Right.
Smitty, you probably remember it's this, kind of wonderful camping trip with his father where they're going to this lake that's not on any of the maps, and it has all this family history that his father's telling him about. It's kind of like a mythical place in their family story, right? And it's where they have this encounter, right? But it's also where on that trip his father changed, right? His father somehow got damaged, and we're not sure how until much later. But Jute always looks at that trip as this kind of turning point in his own life, right? Like up until that trip, he was on this one track, and then afterwards, he was on a different track. So Jute really was kind of the next character that really came to me. And then Virgil kind of was like I almost kind of thought of them a little bit as like an odd couple, right? So they're kind of opposites, but they're also, I mean, they have this one thing that they have in common. They have different beliefs about Bigfoot. They have different beliefs about a lot of things, but they have this in common, and just this friendship that keeps them close.
Well, that's cool. That's really neat.
Yeah.
There's a lot of emotional weight behind the masculinity, repression, and belief. Was that intentional, and how was that intentional?
Well, I mean, I think that belief isn't something that I think a lot of people talk about normally, right? And I think it's interesting. I think I think Bigfoot is a really good way, like it's kind of an avenue for people to talk about and explore what they believe, right? I have this thing that I say sometimes that is like, Bigfoot is a good way to measure our own comfort with doubt, right?
Yeah.
No one really knows what Bigfoot is, or no one is 100% sure if it exists, right? Or if it doesn't, right? Like, and I think a lot of people in order to but I think doubt is really discomforting to people, right? To say you don't know is it's harder to say than a lot of people can believe, right? And so I think that by talking about Bigfoot, it's a really good way to kind of open up that discussion about belief. What do you believe in? And what does that say about you, right? That you've chosen to believe this thing. So I think that that's kind of the way that they're able to have this friendship, and they're open about the things they disagree on or agree on and all of that, but it still has this kind of central like focus that still brings them together.
Well, what are some myths that maybe, and we say myth, but what are some things that you grew up with? Obviously, Tim and I were talking about possum head, man. I heard that from the time I was young, and we don't get a whole lot of Bigfoot sightings or anything around here. What's some things that you grew up with that molded you somewhat?
Yeah, so here's one, and this is going to be completely random that no one's ever heard of. And I even asked my brother about this recently because I've been kind of fascinated about it. This is, I think, where like urban legend and myth kind of collide a little bit. So there were these two kids across the street from us growing up in Billings. There were these two kids. There was some grandparents, and their grandchildren, Dieter and Dustin, would come visit them every summer, right? And when they'd come to visit, I don't know who set it up. My brother and I, we would go hang out with them. We'd either play at their place or our place or at the park nearby. And I remember at one point, Dieter and Dustin said, like, well, have you ever heard of Mr. Greenie? And no, I hadn't heard of him. And they started talking about this kind of entity called Mr. Greenie, right? And who, they talked about all these kind of characteristics that he had. He was partly made out of vegetation, and he could kind of, materialize wherever he wanted. And, he would kidnap children and things like that, right? And so, and so we would kind of play this game, like looking for Mr. Greenie, like at night in the yard with a flashlight, just run over to the bushes and look or whatever. And so I've since Googled it. Like I can't really find anything on the internet for Mr. Greenie. And I even asked my brother, I was like, do you remember Dieter and Dustin? And he's like, yeah, I remember them. We used to hang out with them in the summers. And I was like, do you remember they would talk about Mr. Greenie? And he's like, no, I don't remember that.
Man.
Yeah, right. So it was funny because so that is like in some ways the world's most kind of like personal cryptid or myth, right? Because it's just like something I remember as a kid being told, and I don't really know anything more about that, right?
See, there's a whole idea for a horror book.
I know, right? Well, that might be. I'm kind of working on my next one.
Kind of is nightmare fuel. I'm not gonna lie.
It is, right, and but I think it's also really just a fascinating idea how, how urban legends, they can kind of gain and pick up steam, and then all of a sudden, like, at what point do they become something bigger, like a myth, right? The other thing that you hear in Montana is, I had a fair amount of Native American friends growing up, and they have I believe it's a crow myth about, and I can't remember the actual indigenous name, but they're often referred to as the little people that inhabit certain places in the mountains, mischievous entities, basically just small humans, but that can, that can cause harm or danger if you kind of misbehave or whatever, which is also interesting because if you look in kind of a lot of the Nordic cultures, they have a very similar entity, right?
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah, which that's one of the other things I find fascinating about all this is seeing the kind of crossover from cultures that would have never had any contact before at all, right?
How they overlap all these things. It's just like, you look at Native American culture, they believed in Bigfoot.
Yeah.
I mean, you have Vietnam, the Vietnam veterans. A lot of Vietnam veterans had experiences with ape-like creatures that were actually throwing rocks at them at one time, and there are no monkeys in Vietnam that I'm aware of, or apes.
Apes, yeah.
Apes. There may be monkeys, but there were no apes, and
Yeah.
they didn't know what to do. They were about to go into a battle, and they told them not to fire, but they're getting beat half to death with rocks, and so there's overlapping.
That's fascinating. I'd never heard those stories from Vietnam, but obviously a lot of other places have those stories, right?
Yeah. I mean, we've even researched way back into the early time of this country in the 1500s. They saw UFOs and different things like that. And it's just amazing to know that these stories exist throughout the history of time, pretty much.
I feel like as humans, we sometimes have this like erase button where we decide that like after a certain point in time, we're just going to erase everything we knew, and then we'll just start and pretend we didn't know anything that happened before that. But like, I think all of this stuff that people observe, they were happening before, at least, we can, our history records it for sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great point. I was talking about that sort of thing with somebody today because they kept bringing up this notion about bears in particular and misidentification, which, okay, I can understand. We've got a friend in Montana. He has lots of film of bears walking upright, and doing like a toddler in between brush.
Yeah.
And you saw that in the middle of the night and heard it. You might be frightened and misidentify it as a bipedal creature, right? But it's these ancient tales. We've had a multiple guests on the show named Becky Cook, who is the author of the Bigfoot Lives in Idaho series, and she tells of the native people there who she spent a lot of time with. They talk about having meetings with the Bigfoots and communicating with them and exchanging goods, even playing games with them.
Yeah.
Okay, this is clearly not bears that they're talking about. Matter of fact, why would such legends even exist at all?
Yeah. I mean, when you think about the indigenous people in this country, they were here over 20,000 years, right? Like, and their survival hinged on being intimately knowledgeable about the land, right? So to your point, why would you invent a story like that, right? I will say that I do think, because I like to be clear-headed about all of this. I do think that a lot of people who have Bigfoot encounters might be misidentifying bears, right? Like I think that's because I've been camping, I've been hiking, I've seen bears moving through brush. It can be a little bit, it's easy to kind of misidentify, right, the way they move. But I'm certain, like, I know not all of those are misidentifications, right? And I think that the people who are seeing bears, they're not making it up. It's kind of an honest mistake that they might be making. I'm absolutely sure that that's not all of the encounters.
Well, that's like here. We have a lot of people who claim that they see panthers or hear panthers.
Sure.
But a red fox, have you ever heard of red fox?
I haven't, no.
It's like a woman screaming.
Okay.
I mean, and so that's what they'll say. I heard a woman. It sounded like a woman screaming. And, and different things can be misinterpreted. This is a true story. We came back from our honeymoon, my wife and I, and she lived in the city. And it's like 2 a.m.
Yeah.
And I live in the country, and we moved to the country. And she woke me up and said, "There's a bunch of children hollering outside." I said, "That's not children, that's coyotes. Now let me go to sleep." And so, people misinterpret things. And I think the bear thing is probably one of the bigger misrepresentations.
I think so, just because the coloration and their appendages can kind of at the right angle look almost like ours, with kind of elbows that are a little bit higher up.
And they can stand on their back legs.
And they can stand on their back legs, absolutely. But I'm certain that is not all of, like
Oh, no,
that's
no,
not
no,
the
no,
only
no.
answer, right?
I'm just saying, just throughout history, we've seen that, and even around here, things get misinterpreted sometimes.
Sure.
But after a while, like you said, when you have a group of people that are consistently telling the same story, it's got to add up after a while.
And honestly, I mean, and this is something I talk about in the book, right? Because I wanted to be really, I think a lot of people, their first inclination is to, you're talking about Bigfoot people. Oh, like it must be some kind of joke. Like, so I wanted to be really, really clear that like, these are serious people and they're really like good, honest people. And so that was really important to me. But wait, Smitty, what was it that you were talking about? I can't remember why I started talking about this.
The Panthers, maybe?
Oh, yeah. Just the idea that like, the idea that people might be somehow doing this for their own benefit, right? Like if you actually talk with these witnesses, most of the time their encounter kind of screwed them up in some way.
Yeah.
Like they are dealing with really heavy kind of trauma. Yeah, exactly.
That's a major theme of American mythology, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, that is exactly. And I mean, it's something they carry with them. And I think that they only reveal it. I think they most often don't reveal it because of the fear of being ostracized, of being ridiculed. And I think that they only reveal it if it kind of just, it's something that they feel they need to tell the world. But I think more often than not, they ultimately regret it. I mean, they're not doing it for money. Like the people who do it they're not making anything off of this. So
we had, was it Travis Walton on?
Yes.
The probably most well-known UFO abductee, and he said, I wish this would have never happened.
Yeah.
I wish I would have never experienced this. And most of our guests are along those lines, especially when it comes to UFO field.
Yeah.
They don't want people to know, and they try their best a lot of times not to tell anyone.
Yeah.
It is something that people ostracize them for.
Yeah, and I think in some ways they ultimately do decide to tell it just because they feel like they need to kind of unburden themselves in some way. And I hope, and that's why I really appreciate podcasts like yours and the other ones that do this, that kind of are this open forum for people to kind of just come and say like, hey, this happened to me. And it's, we're not going to sit here and judge you. We're not going to sit here and make fun of you or tell you, gaslight you and tell you that, no, you didn't see this, you saw a bear, right? Like just, we're here to hear you out. I think that's honestly, I think that's a really like noble service that it provides people. And I think it helps other people to listen. Like, that's why I just listen to all these podcasts, because I love it,
Well, thanks. We appreciate that. And
very much.
I'm going to admit something right now. American mythology, I mean, it resonated with me because we're dealing with a group of friends and they're basically bonding over American mythology, over Bigfoot, over cryptids. And that could very well be a description for this podcast.
Yeah.
I mean, Smitty and I, we originally bonded over Possum Head Man. When we brought CJ into the fold, it was over Bigfoot and UFOs and aliens, cryptids, the paranormal, that sort of thing. So I think for us, Giano, we read the book. It's an incredible book. And it resonated with us because we identified with this notion of people who have, their own deeply personal past, but they find something that they can identify with, and that's going out and searching for something. It meant a lot to us. Your book did. I wanted to make sure you knew that, Giano.
Wow, thank you. That I am deeply touched to hear you say that. That means a lot to me. I really, before this book came out, I was pretty nervous about like what real Bigfoot people would think about it and how they would interpret it and feel about it. So to hear you say that really means a lot to me. Thank you.
Absolutely. And are you a Stephen King fan, by the way?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't read probably as much as some, but I'm a huge Stephen King fan. Yeah.
Well, that's okay, because also for me, American Mythology, I loved it for a lot of the same reasons that I love Stephen King novels.
Okay.
Just look at it, right? It starts off with a group of kids, and they share this traumatic experience, and they reconnect as adults to come face to face with it, or try to, right?
That's great. Yeah, I never even thought about that. That's right. That's great. Yeah.
Stand by Me.
Stand by Me, which I mentioned in my opening monologue. Yeah. And even Under the Dome, which was turned into a television show and also sort of parodied in the Simpsons movie, where there's this town, right? It was put under an invisible dome. And if you just picked up the book and you saw the cover, you would think, okay, this book is about an alien presence and a dome that they put around this town, but that's not it at all.
Yeah.
And that's not the case with most of his books. They're about people.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I mean, like, that's such a great point, right? Like, horror, and I'm using that term to describe Stephen King. Some people have said mine falls into that category. It doesn't work unless you care about the characters on some level and you want good things to happen to them, right? So that's a huge compliment. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. That is true. But that's why some people say, the scariest place on earth is the state of Maine, right? Because the majority of Stephen King books are set in Maine. But that brings me again back to your book, and a subplot of your book to me. And again, this is something that Smitty and I can relate to, not CJ, because she grew up in Palmdale, California with Afro Man. But sorry, CJ, we miss you tonight.
I know. Sorry, CJ.
I mean, she spent her time in, Santa Barbara and anyway. But a subplot of your book to me was this notion of small town life.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about one of the best names in town history, Basic, Montana?
Oh my God. Thank you for saying that. I honestly, when I hit that on that name, I'm like, I was so excited. I was like, oh, I've got it figured out. So, I mean, because those names, and I think it was this big trend, like probably in the 1800s, to give towns like very like just normal words as names, like Acme or prosperity or things like that. And so I hit on Basic because I'm like, back then it probably would have been like, oh, Basic is a really upstanding name for a town. And now we would look at Basic and be like, that's kind of an insult, right? And so I like the idea of a town being named after a place that was once kind of viewed as an upstanding, like good, solid word, and now would be kind of looked down upon by people. So Basic is, it's this dying mining town where the mining has left some time ago. And, if you look around places like Montana, there certainly are a number of and I mean all across this country, right, where whatever the industry was that's now moved on, these towns are, but the economic engine is left, but the people haven't, right? And they don't want to go, right? Like they're like, why should we have to go? We love it here, right? And so I really wanted to try to capture that feeling of the people that live in a town like that, right? And in Montana, there are plenty of towns like that. For Basic Montana, this fictional place that I wrote about, it's geographically set in it's a town called Elkhorn, Montana, which is nestled in the Elkhorn Mountains, and it was as in this story, it was a silver boom town. Kind of had this like came in overnight, had a great big heyday, and then the mining left, and it's dwindled, and it's now like a ghost town. Like, so if you go to Elkhorn, Montana, it's got, kind of they call it the fraternal hall and maybe like the general store, but they're just kind of, you can go in and look around and there's signs, but there's nothing happening there. But then I also kind of fused it with some other mining towns that I know in Montana that are still kind of, they've figured out a way to kind of hang in and create some other economic kind of levers that can keep them going. So I wanted to have, so the town where this story takes place, it still has some vitality to it, even though it feels like it's getting kind of smaller and smaller as it goes. So that was important to me. I'm glad that you resonated with that, because I wanted to really capture that feeling of what it's like to be in one of those towns, and you love it, but you also kind of can almost on the horizon see that maybe this won't last,
Right. And I think I just had an epiphany.
Okay.
Just now. I'm not going to say what the epiphany is just yet, but
okay.
But it does make me think of another fascinating part of American mythology. To me, one of the most fascinating parts, and that is, and also it's something we've talked quite a bit about on this podcast, although we have called it other things. That is this notion of thin places.
Oh, yeah.
What can you tell us? Not only its use in the book, but just your take on what exactly are thin places.
Okay, so thank you for asking me about this. I've thought a lot about this, and I've done a lot of research on this. In terms of kind of just like historical and anthropological methods, or kind of along that route. So kind of the concept of the thin place, and I'm sure most of your viewers probably already know, like the concept of the thin place is that it's a place where the veil between like kind of the material world, our world, the ones with, pens and papers and all that, kind of is really just kind of right up against the immaterial world, like the spiritual world, the world where kind of the immaterial kind of the material kind of falls away, and the spiritual world is more prevalent. And so the thin places, and I think that actual term is a Celtic term specifically, but if you look across cultures, they all have that concept, right, of a place that has some kind of like sacredness to it. And so a lot of what I was researching was kind of this concept, the mythical concept of sacred places. And they talk about kind of 3 levels of sacredness. So you have a place that's sacred because we have decided to say it's sacred. So let's say a church, right? So they built a church on your street corner, so that has become some kind of sacred place, right? And then they talk about a sacred place that's sacred because of events that have transpired upon it. So something like the Gettysburg battlefield, right, where all these people have died. We consider that a sacred place because of the events that have happened on it. And then there's a 3rd level of sacred space that is kind of transcends all of that we can't really explain why it holds these properties or why it exists in that way. And so in the book, Jute's father talks about the Temple Mount, right? It as being this place where 3 separate religions say that this unbelievable important thing to their religion took place there, right? And he says, well, what are the chances that all 3 of those, 3 of the world's major religions had this important event take place on this one spot of land? And he says, probably not great, but probably what it was is that somehow people went to this place and they felt moved somehow by what that place held. And so they decided in the concept of their religion to say, okay, well, this important thing must have happened there. But really in reality, there's something else that exists in that land, and I don't know if we can explain it necessarily, although I think there's probably on some level a scientific explanation. We just don't know what it is yet, like in terms of like energy emission or energy conservation. But so that's that kind of third level of sacred place. So I don't know if you wanted, I got really nerdy there about it, but I get super excited.
I love it.
Okay.
That's great. No, we talked a lot about such places on the show, and again, it's quite personal for us. For me, it's deeply personal. March last year, 2024, for some reason, I felt deeply moved to go to Roswell, New Mexico, for some reason.
Oh, okay.
I had no idea why, but I went, and no plan whatsoever. But the next thing I know, I ended up at a UFO crash site, and I fully believe it opened all these paths, or it unlocked these events in my life that would have never happened had I not made that journey to this thin place or this sacred place.
Absolutely.
And I'm getting to my epiphany here, because in the book, Giano, American Mythology by Giano Cromley, you can pick it up now everywhere, basically.
Yeah.
And in the book, there are some places basically identified as thin places: Whispering Woods, Ramsey Lake. This shack may be of particular thin place. But my epiphany is, and I want to know what you think about this, is it possible that basic Montana itself is a thin place?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely possible. Yeah, absolutely. I think it is in many ways, right? I think it's, and if it's not directly, it is the nearest hub to this sacred place, right? So it's the adjacent place. It's the spot from which you access the sacred space, right? Which can be almost as important as the sacred space itself, right? Like the vestibule of the church is just as important as the church itself. So yeah, I think that's absolutely accurate.
Good.
I hadn't thought about that. By the way, I hadn't thought about that before. So that's really good. I'm going to steal that and say I did it on purpose.
No, that's perfect. Okay. Well, I started thinking about, I brought up It by Stephen King and Derry, Derry, Maine. And it was, I guess you would call it a thin place. For whatever reason, this entity decided to make Derry its home. And I'm sorry, good luck to you if you lived in Derry. But I don't think basic is quite that bad. But I do think that you're right. I think basic Montana is maybe the gateway to accessing some of these other sites.
Yeah, I think that's right. I really like that. I'm actually writing that down right now.
Hey, okay, maybe we'll be in the sequel there. That would be
exactly.
That would be great. Well, Smitty wanted to dive in real quick for a little bit behind the book with you, Giano.
Sure.
Well, I was going to tell you this first. Mississippi took the opposite from basic. We have a town called Sugar Lock, and we have all these strange different names.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Most of them are based on Native American names. I mean, they're not strange, but Sugar Lock, nobody can say that correctly unless
yeah, exactly.
And then we call Lafayette. We have Lafayette County.
Oh, really? Okay. All right.
One of our main universities is. But how long did it take you to write the book? I mean, from beginning to end.
Okay, so I this is gonna so I started it in February 2019, and I finished the first draft at the end of 2020. And so then basically ever since then I have been revising it on some level or another. I had this group this fellowship that I worked with at Stony Brook University, where they helped me revise it significantly. And then when I got an agent for it, she helped me go through several revisions of it. And then once I finally got an editor at Doubleday, he had me, I think, go through 3 revisions of it. So it was a lot of revising to get to what you read.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm in the same boat. They're editing and revising my next book right now, and it drives me a little crazy.
Yeah.
If something's not right, it's sent back to me, and I'm like,
Yeah, I mean, and like every question they have like gives you a headache, right? Where it's like, really, it's just okay. I got to think about this now, right? Yeah.
And you have to be very patient. I'll say that much.
It does. You do, right? And I think the important thing is to know that they all mean well, right? They want it to be the best that it can be. It's just sometimes you're like, oh man, really? You're asking me this? Okay, let me figure it out. Yeah.
All right. Well, were there any scenes in the book that were emotionally hard to write for you?
Oh.
That actually really touched the basis or whatever, went to your soul, I guess you could say.
Yeah. I mean, so honestly, a lot of them, I think the scenes that were really most kind of hard to write for me were, the kind of scenes of where the two friends, Jute and Virgil, are kind of, they're, I don't want to give too much away, but Virgil has something happening that, is, kind of a big thing that's going to,
a secret.
I would say he has cancer and he probably doesn't have very long to live, right? So I think writing those scenes, so I wrote scenes where he's kind of talking to his friend Jute about that and kind of trying to, trying to give, and I think what he's trying to do is trying most of all not to hurt the people around him, right? Which is interesting since he's the one who's kind of hurting or sick anyway. And then also the scenes with his daughter, especially. And I don't have children, but if I did, I think that would, I really tried to channel that feeling for those scenes. Just because just how hard that would be.
Yeah. Well, what's the reaction? Have you had any reaction from the Bigfoot community? Because the community is huge.
I know, right? And I mean, I think we can all be honest and say they're not always, I think they can be cantankerous at times, right? There's some disagreement among the Bigfoot community. So far, I think it's been really positive. Aside from like, YouTube comments or something or whatever, but like, I think the response itself has been really positive. With Jute and Virgil, I wanted to kind of incorporate the two, major strains of Bigfoot, belief, right? Where it's, kind of the apers and the woo. So I wanted to kind of make sure that I talked about kind of both sides of that. And, because Jute and Virgil are disagree on that front, right? On what Bigfoot could actually be. So I think people are, for the most part, have been pretty receptive to it. It's still early days, so we'll see. Maybe there'll be some controversy brewing. I don't know, but so far it's been really positive.
Well, this wasn't one of our questions that I had written down, but who's your favorite author?
Oh God,
that's a tough one. I know
it is a tough one. I can never. So I like stories about kind of people who are down and out and kind of just getting by, but also that are kind of got some humor to them. So there's this author, Richard Russo, who wrote Nobody's Fool, and another one called, I think it's called Mohawk Falls, and they're kind of set in like small town upstate New York. So Nobody's Fool was actually, they made a movie out of it with, I can't remember his name, but and he's just kind of like a carpenter who's kind of barely getting by and kind of grifting people here and there. And I just love them for their sense of humor, but also capturing that sense of like small town life, and everybody knows everyone and everyone kind of knows what they shouldn't trust about everyone else. I like those types of stories. So probably Richard Russo for that.
I'm gonna have to read some of his stuff.
You should. I think you'd really get a kick out of them. They're fun.
I guess mine would probably, one of my favorite be Larry McMurtry.
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, so thank you. Lonesome Dove, forget it. That's one of my favorite books of all time.
All 4 of those in that series are just unbelievable.
Oh, so I've only read Lonesome Dove. The other one was Return to Lonesome.
Dead Man's Walk,
okay.
Lonesome Dove, Streets of Laredo. Well, you got Comanche Moons in there, and then Streets of Laredo.
Okay, so I didn't realize, I hadn't realized that he had those other ones. I just remember, God, I was in my 20s reading Lonesome Dove and just being like, I never want this book to end. Even though it's like 1,000 pages, it's so long.
It follows like Gus and him Call throughout their life. When they first meet, then they're a little older, then they progress. The series progresses with them.
That's awesome.
So,
yeah. Oh God. Yeah. Lonesome Dove is so good. It is one of those books you can basically recommend to anyone, and it doesn't matter who they are, what they do. Like, you can just be pretty confident they're gonna love it. You know.
That's true. That's
end
true.
of story. Yeah.
I'll turn it back over to Tim.
Well, I mean, we really appreciate Giano Cromley for joining us, author of American Mythology. It's available everywhere right now. And there's so much that we could cover here. We'd love to have you back on the show with us sometime. Sure. Giano, in the future, when you got another project out there, or to talk more about Bigfoots or Chicago or Montana, whatever you want to talk about. Because this has been great. But I guess real quick, I really want to know. I mean, because the American Mythology, it's much more than a Bigfoot book, as I was saying. It really takes some dives and some really deep territory here. One of those aspects, I think, for me, is this: there's a battle, maybe not a battle, but the constant notion of, okay, is it Bigfoot and this mythology, is it an actual physical presence, or are we dealing with something metaphysical here?
Yeah.
And then you mix in the belief with that, and with it, right? How important that is for our characters. And maybe you could just tell our audience a little bit here about your take on the physical versus the metaphysical.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So that is, I mean, I think I would start by saying that, as we've covered, it took me a long time to write this book. And I think during the course of writing this book, I've said to friends that it's in many ways been kind of a journey of belief, right? Like of evolving belief, which is funny because all the characters, and you know, this is how my editor had described it, all the editors kind of start at one point of belief, and then during the course of the book, they move in a different direction, right? So all of them kind of have their perspectives changed. And that was really, I think, something that happened to me as I wrote this. So I think when I first started, I would have been very, very committed to kind of the like aper, like relict hominid type of kind of school of thought. And before I say that I subscribe to more of the woo concept, I should kind of preface this by saying, you know, the science fiction writer Arthur C. Clarke has this rule called, or it says, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic, right? So the idea behind that is that, if you know, 200 years ago we saw someone with an iPhone, we would say, well, I mean, that person is a wizard. Like they are obviously practicing the dark arts, right? You know, so because we just don't know any better. And so I think, you know, when I say that Bigfoot might have kind of more woo properties, what I really mean is it might have properties that we just don't understand yet, right? We like to think that we are the smartest creatures on the planet and that we are aware of everything that a creature can do, right? But if you think of what, you know, something like a whale can do, right, where they can pinpoint another whale on like the other side of the ocean, and they can migrate within 1 degree of their course, right? And we're like, well, how do they do that? Well, it must be magic, right? So why is it that these creatures don't also have properties that we don't understand that make them exceptionally hard to detect, right? And I'm not going to say what those properties are. I don't know, but I mean, they could be anything. And if you think what an octopus can do, an octopus can change its color and its texture of skin, right, to remain undetected. So why wouldn't a creature that's evolved over time adapt itself to a way that we just don't understand how it can remain hidden? So some might call that woo, but I just think it's science that we don't understand yet.
Those are great points. I really appreciate that answer. And we appreciate your time tonight, Giano. And I've got one more quick question about the book for you, if you don't mind. And
Sure.
then if you're up for it, we have just a couple of hot takes and listener questions for you.
You bet.
If you have the time, well, great. We really appreciate that. My last question about American mythology for you. I've heard it said that in today's society, and this is one of those deep topics that I think American mythology does a great job of going into without even necessarily going into it. You know what I mean? Because it's there. But in today's society, it is more difficult than ever before in human history for adult males and females to make friends, to have a sense of belonging, to properly deal with things like grief.
Yeah.
And in your book, you've got this group called the Basic Bigfoot Society.
Yeah.
And it kind of serves as this way for this. Some people are close to each other already, but others are outsiders, like our Dr. Bernard, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it kind of serves as a conduit, a way for them to connect in a way that it can be difficult in today's society. Maybe you could just give us a little take on the Basic Bigfoot Society and, what role you think it serves.
Yeah, I mean, well, thank you for saying that, because that was one of the points of writing this book, was to talk about that, right? And I think, especially for men, it can be hard to just kind of to be friends, right? There's for a lot of reasons, right? It's if you've got your job, you've got all these other things that are kind of preoccupying and taking up your time, and you're trying to take care of whatever it is that you need to take care of, but and so I think it's easy to kind of overlook the importance of friendship. But I think it's also, what happens is, if you do have someone that you're friends with, it's really hard to, okay, well, what are we going to just hang out and talk, right? Like, are we just going to have coffee? It's just not, it's not something that a lot of us, I think, feel naturally inclined to do, or I think we feel like we always have to be really busy doing stuff. So I think in some ways, something like the Basic Bigfoot Society is like a proxy, right? It's this thing that we can do, and while we're doing it, we're friends, right? Like it's a thing that kind of, it's like an excuse to hang out, right? And I think Rye, Virgil's daughter, his skeptical daughter, says, like, I thought you guys just came out on these expeditions to drink beer and sit around a campfire, right? But also, what's wrong with that, right? Like, what's wrong with like drinking beer and hanging out around a campfire, right? And if you need to say, like, yes, we're looking for Bigfoot in order to do it, all the better, right? It's getting you out, you're doing something, you're hanging out with your buddies. And so that's part of why I just love like Bigfoot culture, is because a lot of what those people are doing is, they are looking for something, but they're just hanging out and spending time together in what is, I think, a really positive way, right? Like, they're out in nature. They're they're kind of living, in a tent or whatever. I mean, they're camping. They're doing, I think, what are great things. So if you need to say that you're looking for Bigfoot in order to do that, God bless, right?
Absolutely. And I tell people that, Giano,
Yeah.
look, I don't care whether you believe in Bigfoot or not.
Yeah.
Smitty and I are a great example of this. One of the greatest times of our adult lives, at least it was for me, was Smitty and Mr. J, who's our military advisor and dear friend of the show. Mm-hmm. And I went to the Bigfoot Festival in Crossville, Tennessee. When was that? A couple of years ago, right, Smitty?
Yeah, it was awesome. It was so much fun.
Yeah, I mean, I won the Bigfoot hollering competition.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I did.
Nice.
And I mean, we just had.
He mentions that every chance he gets.
Yeah, I mean, well, my God, it's my greatest accomplishment of my life. So why would I not mention it?
Sure.
So, and we just had a blast, right? Rented a house down there, played some golf together, met so many outstanding people. And by the way, this whole thing, this Bigfoot thing, it cuts across all demographics.
Yeah.
It covers a wide swath of the general population. And it's good people. And you know what? And I feel like this in 2020, if it taught us anything, to me, just having the opportunity to gather together with other people and fellowship together, we have to take that as a blessing and understand that we're not always guaranteed to have the ability to do that. So when we have a chance to do it, we should cherish it. And whether it's the basic Bigfoot Society or the Crossville, Tennessee Bigfoot Festival, I think it's worth doing. That's my opinion.
You said it better than I could. That was beautiful. I love that.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. And Giano, you up for a couple of hot takes here for us?
Lay it on me. I'm ready.
All right. So, well, this book is called American Mythology.
Yeah.
Well, we do have some Bigfoot-like creatures in some other parts of the world, too.
Sure.
What's your hot take on the Yeti?
I mean, it clearly exists. Like, there's this book called The Snow Leopard by this kind of really, really well-renowned nature writer. He won the National Book Award for it. His name is Peter Matheson. And if you read it, he's on this kind of journey to discover the snow leopard through the Himalayas. He's on, with these people, these naturalists looking for the snow leopard. They never find it, but you can tell as he's writing this, he's way more fascinated by all the local stories about the Yeti. And because it's filled with stories about the Yeti. And at one point he has an encounter that he writes about in the book where he's pretty sure that he saw one. So I'm on board with the Yeti for sure.
Oh yeah. Somebody asked famous naturalist David Attenborough one time, in your opinion, what is the most likely cryptid? And he said it was the Yeti, the abominable snowman.
Interesting. Yeah.
Because his point of view was, hey, why in the world would any fool put themselves in absolutely life-threatening conditions on the side of Mount Everest or wherever have you in these areas and risk their lives for the possibility that some random person might spot them and report them as the abominable snowman? It makes no sense whatsoever. And then you take into account the footprints and other things. They do have evidence and eyewitness accounts and the legends and stories and myths of the local people. So the surface,
Well, and I think there's also kind of a misunderstanding because it was misinterpreted as the abominable snowman, as if it's this creature that only lives in the snow. Like the habitat of the Himalayas there's a lot of kind of forest areas too. So it's not just kind of, hanging out in the snow and freezing. It's freezing to death, right? Like there's plenty of places where it can get food and all of those things for sure.
Oh yeah. Well, Giano, our next hot take, it's in our logo here. What's your hot take on UFOs?
My hot take isn't whether or not they exist, because they obviously exist. I think my hot take, since it's called hot takes, I'll say, I've recently been really interested in the possibility that they're not actually extraterrestrials, but that they are time travelers from Earth. that are actually just traveling back in time to see us. That's a pretty hot take. I mean, I don't know if we were ready for that kind of spice here. Smitty, is that too much?
That's kind of weird that you said that. I saw who was that was boxing? I think it was maybe Mike Tyson. Have you ever seen that? And it's like back when Tyson first started, I think, and it looks like a guy's holding up a smartphone. Oh. And there's a picture of it, and he's recording. It looks like he's recording the boxing match. And this is like 10 years before smartphones came out. And it's so weird, and people are questioning whether he's a time traveler.
Oh, that's fascinating.
From the future.
Back to see I think it was Bill.
Biff.
Oh, yeah, Biff, that's right. Exactly. He had the sporting book. Exactly. He knew how to bet.
He was probably betting on Tyson, I imagine.
Sure. As long as it wasn't against in the Buster Douglas fight, I think he...
that would be where he'd make his money.
I think he came out.
Or the Vander Holyfield.
I think he came out okay. And so our next hot take here for you, Giano, let's go to this one. Our friend Loch Ness Monster.
So this is one where I might be a little bit of a heretic. I have zero doubts that there are creatures in the oceans that we don't know, that we've never seen and haven't categorized. My issue with lake monsters, and the Loch Ness Monster in particular, is that photographing the water is so weird, and waves can make just the weird patterns, or a log can make a weird pattern. So I'm not saying there's not a Loch Ness Monster. I'm just saying I'm really skeptical of that kind of photography.
Right. And I think you're justified in being skeptical of that. I want to circle back to UFOs real quick before we go on to a couple listener questions. You bring up time travelers. We had a great guest on one time, Chris O'Brien, who I guess you'd call him the preeminent expert on cattle mutilations, if you've heard of that phenomenon.
Sure, of course.
And one of his best takes on what's responsible for the cattle mutilation phenomenon is that it could be time-traveling shells from the future coming back to abduct cows, which in the future are a rare delicacy. So they're abducting them for the steaks.
Sure.
And taking the filet mignon and etc. back to the future.
So like kind of a time-traveling Uber Eats.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh,
all right.
Wow. Yeah. With the what is it? The Fusiomatic 3000. That's what
Sure, exactly. Drop in the bananas in
Marty, we need some more garbage.
Exactly. At least you don't need the uranium.
Yeah. Craig Scott, we're out of uranium.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, Smitty's gonna give you a couple listener questions here before we close out the night. Thanks so much for your time tonight, Giano.
Thanks for having me. This is listen. I'll make time to talk about Bigfoot with anyone, but you guys have been great. This has been a lot of fun.
We appreciate it.
We've enjoyed it.
The author of the incredible American Mythology. There's a link to purchase that. By the way, just scroll down in the show description, and you will see a link wherever you're watching or listening to this podcast to purchase American Mythology by Giano Cromley. And Smitty, let's see. I think we should go with this one.
We want to thank Jason in Portland for sending this question. Did you know how the book would end when you started writing, or did it surprise you also, or too?
Jason, that is a great question. No, I hadn't. Wait, hold on. Let me think. Did I know? No, I had no idea. And in fact, the ending changed multiple times through all the various revisions. So yeah, no, I had no idea, other than that I knew that I wanted to kind of end it focused on the two, kind of protagonist friends, Jute and Virgil. But in terms of kind of how they got there, no, I didn't know. And that even changed again, like multiple times as I revised it.
Well, that's interesting because I'm a writer too, but I don't really write fiction very often, but I've read a lot about it. And a lot of people say they always write the ending first, and then other people say they don't have a clue what the ending is. So.
Yeah. I'm in that second group for sure.
Yeah.
I rarely know how it's going to end when it goes. Yeah.
Tanya from Tulsa asks, what is the weirdest, and we appreciate your question.
Yeah.
What's the weirdest note or piece of feedback you've gotten about your book so far?
Oh, that's a great question. It's a hard one. Thank you, Tanya. What's the weirdest note? Okay, well, this isn't the weirdest note because I don't know if I can think of that, but I had a friend of mine who read an early draft, well, actually the first draft, and he said, I love it. Don't change anything. He said, the only thing you should change the title so that you have the word Bigfoot in the title. He said, because you'll sell a lot more books that way. So I actually went through several different titles. I think one title was going to be The Last Expedition of the Basic Bigfoot Society, but that was kind of long. And I went through a couple others. And then ultimately is when I found an agent. She and I were talking about it, and she had read the whole thing, and she's like, I like this title that you have, but have you ever considered calling it American Mythology? And I was like, that was the original title. Like, oh my God. So I knew that she would be a good agent for it. So that's what I went back to.
Zeke and Elena. I guess that's how you say it, isn't it?
It's Helena. Being from Montana, it's Helena. Yeah.
Helena. Montana writes, if Bigfoot is a metaphor, what is he a metaphor for in your view?
Zeke. Okay. Very good question, Zeke. What is he a metaphor for? So I think that Bigfoot is, I think you could say technically, I think by the way we would describe it, a monster. All right, even though I don't think of it as monstrous, but we consider it a monster. And I think monsters often are metaphors for two things. The things that we fear most, but also the things that we admire most. And so I think that probably Bigfoot, if in my view, and this is just my opinion, it represents the thing that we fear and admire at the same time. And I think that's part of why it's such an enduring concept, is because I think that's what it talks to us. Like Bigfoot talks to us, right? And I mean, I remember when I first saw the Patterson-Gimlin film the first time as a kid, right? And that was still when it was like shaky and you could barely see anything, and it just like something in my brain sizzled when I saw that. Right. And so to me, that was like a myth. It was like a metaphor that just spoke directly to me. And I think that's what Bigfoot is for a lot of people.
CJ from Parts Unknown.
Which may or may not be Chapel, North Carolina.
Yeah. Challenges you. Would you rather spend a night alone in the Whispering Woods or eat a wizard trout raw?
Okay. So for the people who haven't read the book, wizard trout is this mythical species of fish that only lives in this one lake in the book. And I would say I would probably rather eat a wizard trout raw because I would bet that would actually be really good, right? Like it'd be like sushi practically.
Yeah. Ceviche.
Yeah, the Whispering Woods in the book, I don't think you'd want to spend a night alone there.
That's a good question, CJ.
It's a good question. Very
good
detailed.
Question. This CJ, she's in the know. I could tell.
Yeah.
I hope you're recovering from Bourbon Street.
Wait, is that really CJ? You're CJ? No.
I think it could be, yes.
Oh, okay. All right. It's a good question.
She's a little bit like Bigfoot. Her and Smitty has been compared to Bigfoot, by the way, because he's on
all right. Yeah.
He's on about every 1 out of 100 podcasts with me.
Oh, whatever.
So he's rarely seen, but you know.
I'm a busy man. Busy man.
Elusive. He's elusive. Exactly.
Well, this has been All Things Unexplained. This has really been a great night with the author of American Mythology by Giano Cromley. Giano Cromley's here with us tonight, the author of American Mythology. Giano, can you tell everybody, where can they pick up American Mythology? Do you have a website or social media you want people to check out? Any next upcoming projects, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing is to pick up the book. So I always, support local businesses. If you got a local bookstore nearby you, you should go there. They probably either have it on the shelves or they'll get it for you. But if not, you can order it from any of the big places and check it out. That's kind of all I've got going right now. But if they want to follow me on social media, I'm on Instagram. I'm Giano Cromley, whatever the handle is. I'm just posting stuff of my woodworking on Instagram. But lately it's been a lot of book stuff. So normally it's very chill woodworking videos. So, yeah.
Great. I'm glad you brought up the woodworking again, because I'll never forget when we were in junior high and the teacher sent Smitty to get the wood stretcher and he was gone for like 3 hours.
He's lying. We didn't even go to school together. I did take shop.
How did I know?
Yeah.
I actually did take industrial arts.
There you go. Sure.
How did I know?
Yeah, I actually got paddled. I got paddled in the shop.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Wow.
I was busting a board with a drill press one time.
Oh boy.
My teacher didn't like that too much.
No, yeah, they're sticklers there. Yeah.
Speaking of trauma, and
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
American mythology. That's probably my cue to move on to my closing. Thanks again, Giano. And before I send it to Smitty for his final thoughts, that's going to do it for tonight's episode of All Things Unexplained. A huge thank you to our special guest tonight, Giano Cromley, for taking us on a journey through Bigfoot, trauma, friendship, woodworking, and the power of American mythology. Whether you believe in Sasquatch or not, folks, American mythology reminds us that sometimes the scariest monsters and the most meaningful discoveries live inside of us. If you enjoyed tonight's show, be sure to subscribe, leave us a 5-star rating, maybe a review if you got the time, and share it with a friend who still believes or maybe doesn't quite believe just yet. Until next time, keep your eyes on the woods and your mind open, because like this book here, American Mythology by Giano Cromley, confronting the monsters of our past can be just as terrifying and just as vital as chasing them in the woods. Smitty?
Well, I'm not going to go quite as deep as that, but this has been a wonderful podcast, and we really appreciate you being with us, and wish you luck in all your upcoming projects. And I probably do have some emotional trauma from shop class, but we could talk about that on another
Sure, that's
episode.
another pod. Yeah.
But thank you so much for being with us. And remember, to our listeners, be happy, be strange, and listen to All Things Unexplained. Good night.
Thanks, everybody.
All right. Thanks for having me on. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Absolutely.
You're welcome.
I am here to discuss the so-called flying saucers.
We know now that in the early years of the 20th century, this world was being watched closely by intelligences greater than man's.
Did the CIA write Wind of Change by the Scorpions?
As humans busied themselves about the various concerns, they were scrutinized and studied.
Dr. Loeb, what percentage chance do you give it that you have indeed uncovered extraterrestrial or non-human technology?
With infinite complacence, people went about their affairs, yet across an immense ethereal gulf, intellects vast and unsympathetic threw their plans against us.
All of a sudden, a stick out of nowhere landed right in front of us, and there was no tree, nothing overhead. Something threw it at us.
Yeah. What's your hot take on Travis Taylor?
I've got an exclusive for you guys if you want it about the Alaska.
We do.
Okay.
Dr. Taylor was revealed to be the chief scientist of the UAP task force with the Pentagon.
All Things Unexplained.
So some of that, I think, sir, will save for closed session.